Births fall to a 42-year low in the U.S. New CDC data shows. So the whole COVID thing hasn't been so great for babies or birth rate. What do we have here? The number of births in the U.S. fell 4% in 2020, dropping to the lowest level since 1979 and continuing a multi-year trend of declining birth rates. The agency reported 3.6 million births, down from 3.7 the year prior, but it's been like a steady trend downward. Here we go. The general fertility rate dropped a record low in 2020, falling to 55.8 births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. That's a 4% drop in that particular category. And this is another one. The total fertility rate, which reflects the average number of times a woman would give birth in her lifetime, declined to a record low, falling to 1,637 births per 1,000 women. And this is the key component, because that's how you get into replacement conversation about all the old people and who's taking care of the old people and how quickly can you make the robots. Because if you can't get the replacement number, then you don't have the fresh blood. You can't completely get a generation to replace the previous generation. And so you end up with you don't actually need a huge discrepancy to not have enough people. Do you know what I'm saying here? Or at least that's the concern. And it's where you're seeing it play out in other places as well. It just hasn't been so rapid in the U.S. as some of the other places. You know, we talk about Japan.
Yeah.
You talk about certain places in Europe. So if you have 1,600 births per 1,000 women, then you're not at replacement levels. You need like 2,100 to be at replacement levels. And it only keeps trending down. So you end up with this inverse triangle situation where the people who need the most help, the oldest who are living longer than ever before, those who need the most care, have the least number of people capable of taking care of them.
Right.
And the same goes economically speaking, because there's a period of time in your life where you're the most economically productive, and that thing gets flipped upside down as well. And this is a conversation that's affecting a lot of the world. I mean, it's not exclusive to the U.S. There's a conversation like this in China specifically, or especially around a recent census. I find this stuff interesting. I know I covered it a few times on the channel, and people seem to click on it. It's a curious thing that sort of affects us all. And you had the conversation around overpopulation for so long.
Yeah.
It was like, how are we going to deal with all the... And then you have these very specific markets now that are saying, we like South Korea, for example.
Yeah.
They're like, can you guys have a couple of babies real quick? And they're actually, the government trying to incentivize it because they're forecasting this impending situation where you really don't know if it's going to be economically viable for all the people who worked their whole lives to get their pensions even. Because no one's paying into the tax pool the next generation. Like, it's just math. It's just math.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter how you feel about it. It's just the way it's always been, that there's been this replacement of a generation. Now, the last time we talked about it, I'm sure we covered this, and I kind of insinuated at the beginning, there's like a hope that we become more efficient and that group of people finds a way to be taken care of through automation or technology.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't really panned out yet. And especially in the scope of COVID right now, where you got all the COVID is a perfect is evidence, because you look at the people that got hit the hardest. How about the people who were working in those the highest risk facilities, where you got a lot of old people there and they were just super exposed and people didn't want those gigs? Do you see what I'm saying? When you have a limited selection in the workforce and you need people to do those things because you have the population that requires, it's just tough.
Yeah, that's where I feel like robotics would have an upper hand. That's where we actually need like robots or assistants.
Here's the other part of that, though, and I'm going to sound like romantic right now.
You need the love and care.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm just saying, man, if you're going to spend the last 6 years of your life in one of these facilities because you're no longer capable of taking care of yourself, do you spend let's say we get to the point where the robots are capable of lifting you up and bathing you and putting a spoon in your mouth. It looks a pretty grim. Look, man.
No, I hear you on that side too, but you definitely don't want to risk them, the younger folk too, right? I would feel bad if I was bedridden and then, someone comes over who has their whole life in front of them, is taking care of me. If it was...
Well, there's some people, in our community, in our society right now that feel compelled to do that type of work.
Yeah, they're willing to give that up.
Some people are just...
give to society.
Wired up in such a fashion that line of work to them is more compelling than, let's say, working on an assembly line or working at the Amazon or driving for the food delivery.
Yeah.
We can't really say, but the one thing's for certain, if the pool shrinks as a whole, so do your options.
Yeah. You don't want to force anyone to do it, but, it's just sucky situation.
Well, we're talking about a very specific aspect of this whole situation. But the bigger one that affects everyone is the economic one, is who is the workforce? People do want to retire at some point.
Yeah.
And the retirement is paid for by the existing workforce. So either way, whether you even want to talk about that end of life stuff or the aging population, it starts a lot sooner. Your conundrum starts at retirement.
Yeah.
Not death or close to death.
Sure, yeah.
It's all those years that you're going to be banking on that pension or whatever it might be.
You pay it forward.
Yeah. So anyway, they think that the pandemic exacerbated the decline that was already happening. But as mentioned, this is a thing that's not exclusive to the United States. You're seeing it. And I should also just mention, tough time to have a baby.
No kidding.
with everything that's going on in the world, there's certainly some consideration being put into it that would contribute to these figures, but it's more the multi-year pattern that's important here from the 70s than it is about any one given year, even though this may have accelerated things. So 42-year low in the U.S., very interesting stuff. Humans always fix one problem and create another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In China, they had a one-child policy. They had to cool things off at one moment, and now they're in the Korea position of saying...
It's kind of flipped.
That they got the same triangle that a lot of other nations are working with. It's hard to manage us, these humans, guys like,
Yeah.